Olivia is 34 years old. She works in UX research. She reads books. She fact-checks things before she shares them. She does not watch garbage on the internet. She has taste, and she knows it. Every morning while her coffee brews, she scrolls through her feeds and watches 2 or 3 short videos about technology, science, psychology, educational stuff, good stuff. She considers it her version of reading the news. Ask her what she learned yesterday. Go ahead. Ask her. She'll pause. She'll squint. She'll say something vague like something about how the brain works, or I think it was about AI. She might not be able to tell you the source. She definitely can't tell you the argument. And here's the thing that should alarm you. She left each video feeling like she understood it completely. She didn't watch garbage. She watched something that looked smart, sounded polished, and processed like water going down a drain. Nothing stuck. Nothing was supposed to. Olivia didn't fall for a scam. She fell for something far more sophisticated. She fell for content engineered to feel like learning while actively preventing it. And the only reason you feel safe right now, the only reason you're not worried this is happening to you, is that you haven't asked yourself the same question. What did you actually learn online this week? Here's what most people believe about AI-generated content. They think it looks like a cartoon. They think they can spot it. 6 fingers on a hand, teeth that go the wrong way, text that dissolves into nonsense when you zoom in, robotic voice, uncanny valley face, that particular kind of fake warmth that sounds like a customer service chatbot trying to comfort you. That was true in 2023. That was the first generation of the problem. The people running this machine learned, and what they learned was that perfection is actually the wrong strategy, because perfect AI content triggers something in the human brain, a faint signal, an unease, a wait, something is off, that makes people pause and question. So they stopped trying to be perfect. They started trying to be forgettable. Think about what that means for a second. The new goal isn't to fool you into thinking something is real. The new goal is to make you feel like you watched something without leaving anything behind. Content that goes in activates just enough reward to justify a thumbs up and evaporates. The scientific term for what it produces is the fluency illusion. The street name is brain rot, and the Oxford English Dictionary made brain rot their word of the year in 2024 for a reason. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, because before we get to what it's doing to your brain, we need to follow the money. And before we follow the money, you need to meet someone else. Ethan is 26. He's not like Olivia. Ethan has done his research. He knows about AI slop. He actively avoids anything that looks too polished, too clean, too produced. He gravitates toward raw, unfiltered content, slightly shaky camera, creators who stumble over their words, channels that feel human. What Ethan doesn't know is that some of those channels, the ones that feel real, aren't. By 2026, the most sophisticated AI content farms weren't trying to make things look professional. They were deliberately inserting flaws, a slight grammatical stumble, an at the wrong moment, an imperfect lighting setup, intentional imperfections, engineered by the same systems that used to generate images of 5-fingered hands, now calibrated to create the feeling of authenticity. Because there's a premium now on content that is visibly, unmistakably human. And so, the machines learned to fake that too. Ethan thought he had an escape route. The escape route had already been mapped. 2 different people, 2 different strategies, same outcome. They're both inside the machine, and neither of them knows it. That's the first layer. Here's the visible surface. The part that gets written about. The thing you've probably already heard. By mid-2025, approximately 35% of all new websites were classified as AI-generated or AI-assisted. On Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest, nearly 80% of all visual content, almost 4 out of every 5 images you see, was synthetic. Not edited, not filtered, synthetic. Generated from scratch by a model that has never seen a sunset or held a hand. You've seen the numbers, you've read the articles, you might have even shared one, but those numbers are the surface. Below them are layers, and each layer is heavier than the one above it. Layer 1 is economic, and it is enormous. Here's the math that drives everything. Hiring a human writer to produce a well-researched article costs between $50 and $500. Generating that same article, same length, same structure, same approximate reading level, costs pennies, fractions of a cent. When the cost of production drops to zero, Gresham's law kicks in. Bad content drives out good content. Not because people want bad content, because the economics make bad content the only rational choice for anyone trying to compete on volume. The industry built to exploit this is called Made for Advertising, or MFA. These are content farms, thousands of them. They use automated tools to generate articles, pages, entire websites in hours, not weeks, hours. Then they sell ad space on those pages through programmatic networks, the same automated systems that place ads on legitimate journalism. NewsGuard estimates that $13 billion in advertising spend is wasted on these sites every year. $13 billion per year. Major brands you trust, are funding this ecosystem automatically because their ad budgets run through algorithms that don't care where the ad lands, only that it gets impressions. 90% of the ads on recognized content farms are served through Google Ads. Google's system, Google's money, not Google's problem, apparently. And here's where it gets more specific. Meta introduced something called the performance bonus, a program that pays creators roughly $100 per thousand likes on qualifying content. That sounds reasonable until you follow the geography. The highest value demographic for these payments is the United States. High engagement from American users pays significantly more than engagement from most other countries. So content farms in Vietnam, India, and China, where labor costs are low and AI access is not, discovered they could generate emotional bait targeting American users and collect the bonus. The category that converts best: images of injured veterans, starving children, sick babies, AI-generated, designed to trigger guilt, designed to make you like and share, designed to pay out. You've seen those posts. You might have liked one. That's not the worst layer. Layer 2 is what's happening inside your head while you consume any of this, the high-quality stuff and the invisible slop alike. Researchers have identified something called the fluency illusion. It works like this. When information is presented smoothly, clean narration, good pacing, confident delivery, your brain interprets that smoothness as understanding. You didn't struggle, so you must have gotten it. The processing was easy, so the content must have been mastered. Except it wasn't. Ease of consumption is not the same thing as learning. Learning actually requires friction. It requires the brain to break something down, rebuild it, connect it to existing knowledge, consolidate it through retrieval. That process is uncomfortable. It takes effort. AI-generated content is optimized to remove all of that friction. It is smooth by design, fluent by design. And your brain, every single time, mistakes that smoothness for mastery. Studies in STEM education showed something striking. Students who watched fluent, polished AI-generated video explanations felt significantly more confident in their understanding afterward. Then they were tested on independent problem-solving tasks. Their performance collapsed. They felt like they'd learned. They hadn't learned anything. Meanwhile, cognitive offloading, the habit of delegating thinking to external tools, is rewriting how memory consolidates. Research shows that when a task is completed entirely by AI from end to end, the human who initiated the task leaves with very little recollection of what was created. You watched the video. You understood the video. 3 hours later, you cannot reconstruct a single argument from it. Your brain didn't store it. There was nothing to store. The content was processed, not absorbed. There's a difference, a significant one, and the platforms are betting you won't notice. The infinite scroll was not designed to entertain you. It was designed to exploit something called unit bias, the brain's deeply uncomfortable relationship with open-ended tasks. A task with no clear boundary is almost impossible to walk away from voluntarily. Every scroll is a transaction that hasn't resolved yet. Every next video might be the one worth stopping for. It never is. You keep going. Neuroimaging shows that this pattern, rapid content switching, intermittent small rewards, activates the brain's ventral striatum, the dopamine pathway. The system designed for hunting, foraging, and survival is now being triggered by a thumb movement repeated 150 times a day. And while System 1, your fast, reactive, instinct brain, gets this continuous workout, System 2, the slow, analytical thinking that actually builds understanding, quietly atrophies, not through one session, through 10,000 sessions, through a daily practice of passive consumption that gradually, invisibly retrains the architecture of how you think. That's not a metaphor. That's neurological. Layer 3 is the one nobody talks about. Because it's not about you. In March 2026, an investigation found that approximately 40% of videos recommended to children on YouTube and YouTube Kids were AI-generated slop. 40%. These videos don't look dangerous. They present as educational, alphabet learning, number recognition, colors, shapes, songs. The exact content parents feel good about letting their children watch. Except the content contains hallucinations. Not the interesting kind, the dangerous kind. There are educational alphabet videos where the letter B is illustrated with an image that begins with a consonant. There are geography songs for children where state names have been corrupted into nonsense. Lugislia instead of Louisiana, Oklalodia instead of Oklahoma, because no human ever watched the output before it was published. There are videos depicting children playing in traffic, riding and moving vehicles without seatbelts, eating plants that are toxic, generated in minutes, published automatically, recommended by an algorithm optimizing for watch time, not accuracy, monetized through ads that run on the video before any human has reviewed it. A developing brain is not like an adult brain filtering ambient noise. For a toddler, every input is learning, every image is instruction. Every word heard in a song is being written into the foundational structures of language and concept. When that input is contaminated, when the machine that generates it has no knowledge of what a bee actually sounds like, no knowledge of what a seatbelt is for, no accountability to any child watching, the damage doesn't look like anything dramatic. It looks like a kid who's slightly confused, who learned something slightly wrong, who absorbed something slightly dangerous as normal. The channels producing this content are faceless, automated, generating money through monetized views. Nobody is home. Nobody is watching the output. The children are watching the output. This is the layer where the economics of slop stops being an abstract problem and becomes something else entirely. But here's the room nobody told you about, the room where the real extraction happens. It's not your time they want most. It's not even your attention exactly. It's your willingness to care about whether something is real. Think about what consistent exposure to unverifiable content does over time. Every piece of content that might be AI or might be human costs you a small unit of cognitive energy to evaluate. That energy adds up. Users report a feeling researchers have started calling the verification tax, the exhausting constant background process of asking, is this real? Is this a person? Does this actually exist? For every image, every claim, every emotional story. At a certain point, the brain makes a rational feeling decision. It stops paying the tax. It's too expensive. It just stops caring. That is what dead internet feels like from the inside, not the absence of content, the opposite. An overwhelming abundance of content that has successfully trained you to disengage from the question of whether any of it is true. And once that happens, once you've stopped applying the critical filter, the content that flows through is the content the machine wants to flow through. Unexamined, unquestioned, accumulated quietly into the background noise of what you believe about the world. That's not a bug in the system. That's the system working exactly as designed. So, what do you do with all of this? Not quitting the internet. That's not realistic, and it's not the point. The point is something researchers have started calling cognitive dissonance. The active, deliberate decision to use your attention differently than the platform wants you to use it. First, friction is not the enemy. Every time you feel like something was easy to understand, easy to process, easy to agree with, that should be the moment you slow down, not speed up. Ask what the piece was actually arguing. Try to reconstruct it. If you can't, you didn't learn it. Second, treat your attention as an asset with a real cost. Every hour of passive consumption is an hour your system too didn't get used. That's not a dramatic statement. It's a use it or lose it biological reality. Schedule deliberate, high-friction content. Books, long-form articles that make you work, conversations that require you to hold a position under pressure. The discomfort is the point. Third, for anything designed to generate a strong emotional reaction, especially images of suffering, especially things that make you want to share immediately, pause. Not because the thing is necessarily fake, but because the response it's provoking in you is exactly the response that monetizes it. The like that feels like empathy might be funding the machine that generated the image of suffering in the first place. And fourth, especially if you have children, watch what they're watching, not trusting that the platform curates safely, not trusting that the label says educational. Watch it with them, ask what they learned, try to reconstruct it together. That friction, the engaged conversation that demands accountability from the content, is the only reliable filter that currently exists. Olivia still drinks her coffee every morning. She still watches 2 or 3 videos while the cup cools. But a few weeks ago, she ran an experiment on herself. She watched a video, closed the app, and immediately tried to write down what she'd just learned. Not summarize, reconstruct. The argument, the evidence, the specific claim. She couldn't do it. She tried again the next day with a different video. And the next. She started keeping score. The results were uncomfortable. Some videos, the ones that had felt the most effortless, the most satisfying, the most shareable, left almost nothing behind. They had processed through her brain like warm water, present and then gone. The ones that left something were the ones that had made her work slightly. That had included a claim she wasn't sure she agreed with. That had required her to pause. She didn't stop watching videos. She changed how she watched them. She started asking one question before she opened the app. Not, is this real? That question is too expensive, too easily abandoned. She started asking, will I remember this tomorrow? And if the honest answer is probably not, if the content is designed to be consumed without being remembered, she started closing the tab. Not because the content is dangerous, because her attention is valuable, and the machine is counting on her not knowing that. You had a question at the start of this. What did you actually learn online this week? Now you have the mechanism to answer it honestly. The slop doesn't need to fool you. It just needs you to forget to ask.